It is genuinely my pleasure today to get to speak with you on one of the top subjects, I believe, in business today, and that is on employee retention, how to stop the employee exodus. And this is the next entry in a series that has been provided by iSeek Solutions, winning in 2021. Let me go ahead and share my screen with you here. Actually, Marche, if you could go ahead and share, allow me to share, would be fantastic. So our goal in this series is really simple. It's to equip you, the business owner, this, whether it's CEO, whether it's business manager, maybe it's simply quote unquote just an employee, because a lot of people see themselves unfortunately that way. Whatever position you hold, our goal is to equip you with principles and resources so that 2021, that a lot of people see as a very difficult year, can be one of your best, can be the one that launches you into your future. But before I get started, I do want to encourage you on one specific part of the iSeek Solutions webpage. And if you haven't been there yet, iSeekSolutionsInc.com, I believe. If you'll go under the Solutions tab into Resources, this is going to be a very valuable place for you to go check out, because every company has different issues that they face at different times. And based on where you're at right now, iSeek Solutions, this consulting company that's putting this series on, is that they have a whole set of resources for you to check into. So based on what you need, please go check this out. Check out which service fits your particular place at this time. So, but I do kind of want to dive into this with a story. I was babysitting my 4-year-old nephew the other day. And something really unexpected happened. He started teaching me about business at 4 years old. Now, he didn't lecture me about team building or best practices. I want you to hear this. He was constantly seeking my approval. When he built a tower, he called me over to show me. When he finished his food, he brought his plate to me. When he scored a touchdown because he was running all over my house and throwing himself on the couch, he called me over because he wanted to celebrate with me. And because I was preparing this talk, I did my very best to make him feel like the king of the world. So here's my opening takeaway, and I'm actually going to begin and end with this. How do we stop the employee exodus? This is what I want to encourage you with. If people feel heard, appreciated, empowered, rewarded, and fulfilled in their work, why would they ever leave? On the other side, if people feel ignored, underappreciated, invisible, and unfulfilled, why would they ever stay? And that's a takeaway I want you to think about. Again, we're going to start and end with this. It doesn't take 5 minutes to read any of 1,000 articles to figure out that we have an epidemic of employees leaving corporations by the thousands, probably tens of thousands. While many companies are trying to figure out how to keep the right people, some people are just trying to figure out how to keep warm bodies, right? Not only are we losing people left and right, but we're losing good people. We're losing the right people. So while step one might be to have a warm body in every position, long-term, we should all be, and we know this, but we should all be trying to find the right people to fill the right spots on the bus. So what does a business do to stop the employee exodus? Is there a magic bean? Is there a lever that we can pull just that we can keep the right people? You see, I don't believe in magic beans, but I do believe in principles. And that's why I have a gentleman planting seeds in a harvest, because the law of sowing and reaping is one of those principles. If you do the work based on the right principles, you're going to get the results that the principles provide. So as we go through here, I want you to see that this might even feel like, well, Chris, you're not telling me specifics. No, I'm going to teach a lot of specifics. But one of the things I'm going to make sure we understand is that we're dealing with people. Right? A lot of things change, and they change very rapidly. Technology changes, media changes, politics change, opinions change. But at the core of their humanity, people really don't change that much. And here's what I mean by that. People are still emotional beings who long for acceptance and appreciation, and who normally seek other people's good. They seek security, they seek comfort, and they want to be rewarded for their work. So when we talk about stopping the employee exodus that we're facing today, the first thing to remember is that people in general are still looking for many of the same things that they sought in generations prior. And possibly the best way to stop the employee exodus of today is to figure out what principles people have used for retention in the past. And I'm using my words very carefully here, because I think many times we can think employees without remembering who those employees are. They're human beings. They're people. Because there's a good chance that the reason that the human beings that we call employees are leaving our corporations is because they feel more like tools than human beings. So let's talk about how to steer the ship away from a potential shipwreck and back into open waters. But first, before we dive in, let me advise this. If your culture is going to change, then you as the leader must be open to the change first. When I talk about some of these issues, your first response might be defensiveness. You might protest based on your previous experience. I would simply recommend this. I'm not telling you to change anything. I'm simply saying that if you're keeping the right people in the right spots on the bus, don't change anything. But very few businesses and corporations today can say that's happening for them. If you'd like something to change, then something needs to change, and it has to start with a leader. And I would encourage you, try implementing these principles, because just like Margaret Mead is quoted as saying, this may be a big task to keep people, right? But she said, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it is the only thing that ever has. One last note, all of these principles are going to come from classic books. I've got books sitting all around me. I'm going to be giving the book suggestions as I go. So this is not Chris Kraft's opinion. These are simply principles and test cases that I've gathered, and I'm going to present them to you because they've worked in every situation over thousands of years. So let's dive into this. First principle, how to stop the employee exodus. First of all, become genuinely interested in the people that you work with, especially the quote unquote little people. Book suggestion here is by Dale Carnegie. It's classic from the 1930s, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Because if you want to keep the right people from leaving your organization, you as the leader need to become genuinely interested in them. I've heard it said from one of my coaches, treat people like they're buried treasure, something very valuable that you can't wait to find and identify. And I will tell you this, by the way, when you're dealing with principles, I don't just want you to hear them. I want you to see them and read some of these principles. So I have a lot of quotes through my PowerPoint today because I'd like you to hear them, but I'd like you to read them as well. And another side note, if you'd like to go back and rewatch this, it's going to be available on YouTube in the future to be able to go back and watch. And if you would like a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, iSeek can definitely get that to you. So let's dive into some of these quotes because the principles are solid. Thomas Carlyle said, a great man shows his greatness by the way he treats little people. Substitute man or woman in there. It's the same principle. Dale Carnegie says, you can make more. Listen to this. You can make more on your bottom line in 2 months by becoming genuinely interested in other people than you can in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you. We have a culture today, I feel like in the business world, especially in America, where the goal is promotion so I can get more people interested in me. When truthfully, your bottom line will increase when you genuinely become more interested in other people. Alfred Adler, the Viennese psychologist, said this, it is the individual, this is hard, but I want you to hear it. It is the individual who is not interested in his fellow men, who has the greatest difficulties in life and provides the greatest injury to others. It is among such individuals, it is from among such individuals that all human failures spring. Let me ask you a rhetorical question before we go to principle number 2. Do you internally feel like you have to put up with people? You just got to put up with my employees. Oh goodness, I just got to get through the day. Because here's what I promise. That feeling comes out. And I promise other people will recognize it. So how do we kind of get past that? How do we genuinely start to care? Is treat people like buried treasure. Become genuinely interested in their story, in their passions, in the things they're good at. And I promise you the people will notice that. Let's go to principle number 2. Practice the 3 A's. Accept, approve, and appreciate. And that specifically comes from Les Giblin's classic book, How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People. And also, I want to recommend the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace. One of Dale Carnegie's most popular quotes, and I love it, he says, any fool can criticize, condemn, and complain, and most fools do. So how do we get away from criticizing, condemning, and complaining is the 3 A's, accept, approve, and appreciate. And it's interesting that we might just kind of think, well, you're just throwing out a bunch of touchy-feely, the ways that people feel. Let's talk numbers. The US Department of Labor came out with a statistic recently that said 64% of Americans who leave their jobs pre-COVID say they do so because they don't feel appreciated. And I think you would agree with me that this entire pandemic situation has made people more worried, more stressed, more looking for some of the appreciation that they might not get in other places. Let's go back to a couple quotes. Gary Chapman, in his book on the 5 languages of appreciation in the workplace, says this. Listen to this. The number one factor in job satisfaction is not the amount of pay we receive, and he's done the research on this, but whether or not we feel appreciated and valued for the work we do. Something deep within the human psyche cries out for appreciation. When that need is unmet, then an employee's level of engagement with their work will be low. How many of us would like to increase the amount of employee engagement in our places? Of course we all would. But it's interesting how few times we tend to focus on sincere appreciation of those people. I actually took a picture from his book. I want to make sure I give him all the credit on Dr. Chapman's book. I want you to see this. Personally relevant, authentic appreciation leads to an increase of employee engagement, which leads to a decrease in turnover and absenteeism. Isn't that what we're trying to do? Aren't we trying to stop the employee exodus? And that leads also to an increase in productivity, and all of those things together mean an increase in the bottom line profits that we make. A recent survey done by the Society of Human Resource Management shows that, quote, employee recognition and engagement are key to retaining good employees. So this is vital that we cover this. Stephen Covey, the author of the book 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, says next to physical survival, the greatest need of human beings is psychological survival, to be understood, to be affirmed, to be validated, to be appreciated. So let's go through the 3 A's. A1 is accept. This is validating people as they are. A couple of quotes, because I don't want us to misconstrue this that, well, we can't expect anybody to change. That's not what we're talking about. And I'm going to cover some of that as we go through. Les Giblin in his book says emotional acceptance does not mean lowering your ideals. Please hear this. We're not talking about lowering expectations, lowering ideals for our community. Going back to Les Giblin, it is an affirmation of him or her as a person. It is a recognition basically and fundamentally that he is something you can accept. It has to do with the stuff they're made of rather than what they do or don't do. Is this how your employees, how your team feels that what the stuff they're made of is acceptable? It's validated, that you are okay with who they are, has nothing to do with what they do. We must separate these things. Giblin also says no one has the power to reform another person. How many of us have tried to do this? He says, but by liking the other person as they are, you give them the power to change themselves. Let's go to A2, approval. This is getting more specific, praising specific abilities and attributes of the other person. Approval, he says, goes beyond just tolerating another's faults and finds something positive that we like. He says people are more pleased at a compliment if you praise them for some virtue that is not glaringly obvious. This is kind of what I wrote in my notes. Don't praise a singer just because they sing well. That's glaringly obvious. Praise them for something that no one saw them do. Praise them for their humility. Praise them for their character. So if you have someone in a manufacturing plant, it doesn't mean as much when you go up and say, great job. It would mean much more to say, hey, you know what? Last night when I came in, I saw that all of this stuff had been organized. That really shows me the commitment that you have to make sure that our organization flourishes in the future. I appreciate that. That is going to be approving an ability and an attribute that is good for your organization and for them. How do they feel? They feel approved, and they also feel like they want to do it again. You get what you reward. Let's go to A3, appreciate. The idea of appreciate simply means to raise in value, where depreciate means to lower in value. Let me read a couple of these quotes. When you appreciate a person, you actually make him or her more valuable and more successful. How many of us want our people to be more valuable and more successful? Then let's raise them in value. Giblin says, I didn't put this in here. He says, stop and consider just how valuable other people are to you. your wife, your husband, your children, your boss, your employees, your customers. Emphasize their own value in your mind. And then this other quote from Giblin, you're always dealing with one individual person. I love this idea. You never learn to get along with people. You learn to get along with this person and that person. There is no such animal as people. The world is populated with individual persons. People is just an abstract term. So let's remember that you're dealing with people. Appreciation emphasizes what is good for the company, by the way, and good for the person. Charles Schwab says this. It's one of my favorite quotes that he has. And if we're going to talk success in American business, we have to bring up Charles Schwab and Andrew Carnegie back in the early days of the 1900s. Let's go into this. Charles Schwab says this, in my wide association in life, meeting with many and great people in various parts of the world, I have yet to find the person, however great or exalted his station, who did not do better work and put forth greater effort under a spirit of approval than he would ever do under a spirit of criticism. Yet in the American business culture, we still tend to have this idea that criticizing people and their work is a better way to encourage them, when someone like Charles Schwab says, I've never seen it. Let's just keep that in mind. And I do want to encourage you. I'm going to cover a lot of information. I'm going to have to go a little faster to get all of this in. Look for the one or two nuggets that you're really going to take away, and then you can go back and re-listen on YouTube later on. Principle number 3. This is a big one for me. Be solution focused, not problem focused. The book Leadership and Self-Deception and The Outward Mindset by the Arbinger Institute are really big for me. In corporate America today, there's a common theme, is CYA. We cover ourselves in every way. And when something goes wrong, the finger pointing begins. I've had several personal examples, as I think we all have. I've been a project manager and a business analyst. And when something goes wrong, nothing gets fixed because we're spending our valuable time sending emails and copying executives to throw each other under the bus. Let me tell you this, the most valuable employees and managers are the ones who say this, regardless of whose fault it is, let's fix it. Let's be solution focused. The 4 words that will send your organization off a cliff are these. Well, the problem is, it's so interesting how when someone offers a solution, we want to poke holes in it and find the next problem. Well, the problem is, well, the problem is, well, the problem is. If that's your response, it's no big deal. You've just simply identified yourself as currently you're a problem-focused person. Through reading, through listening, through association, you can change that to where you can become a solution-focused person. The best managers aren't looking to find new problems constantly. They're looking for new solutions all the time. Now, I do want to throw a caveat in here. Yes, there will always be new problems, obviously, but the point is not to be focused on the problems. The point is to be focused on the solutions. And to keep the best people, they need to know that the leaders of their company are committed to finding the solutions, not constantly doing like this picture shows. How many of us have felt like that before? I know I have felt exactly that way. And that's not how we keep people, or the good people especially. Eleanor Roosevelt says this, one's philosophy is not best expressed in words. It is expressed in the choices one makes. And the choices we make are ultimately our responsibility. Let's go to principle number 4. Be a good finder. Be a good finder. John Maxwell's book, Developing the Leaders Around You. Let's go back to the idea of CYA for a minute. It seems like we have a common business culture of finding all the bad we can and blaming everyone we can. Benjamin Franklin was such a negative person that he began to notice his friends would cross the street to avoid him and his negative conversations. And through a lot of personal development over the years and a lot of modifications to his character, he said this famous line, I will speak ill of no man, and I will speak all the good I know of everybody. Here's a challenge for you, for me, that flies in the face of our victim-oriented blaming culture. Go be a good finder. Intentionally find people doing something good and let them know, and do it publicly. So often in today's society, we take people into the office and give them a promotion and praise them, and then out in the plant, out in the office, we'll scream and criticize. That's completely backwards if we want to stop the employee exodus. Let's praise people in public. Be a good finder. Go try to find people doing something good. I promise you, even the most aggravating, frustrating person on your staff, if you look hard enough, intentionally enough, you can find something good. Now, I'm not saying, I want to back up for a second. I'm not saying that we don't have repercussions for mistakes. Obviously, we have to modify bad behavior in our teams, but our goal in this session is to stop the employee exodus. And if you do your research, you're going to find on a normal basis, people don't normally quit their jobs because they were disciplined. People very often quit their jobs if they're not noticed for their contribution. I'm going to say that again, because the point is not to take away discipline. The point is to include being a good finder. People don't normally quit their jobs because they were disciplined. People very often quit their jobs if they are not noticed for their contribution. One more quote here. Charles Schwab says, the greatest asset I possess and the way to develop the best that is in a person is by appreciation and encouragement. There is nothing else that so kills the ambitions of a person as criticisms from superiors. I never criticize anyone. I believe in giving a person incentive to work. So I am anxious to praise, but loath to find fault. If I like anything, I am hearty in my approbation and lavish in my praise. And actually, gentleman he worked with, Andrew Carnegie, wanted to praise his assistants even on his tombstone. He wrote an epitaph for himself, which read this: "Here lies one who knew how to get people around him who were cleverer than himself. He was a good finder even in his death." Can people say that we are a good finder instead of a bad finder? Last point is, we're going to call this a checkpoint race, and I'd love to dive deeper into this, and I'm not going to call it that. The author, Chris Brady, mentioned this in an audio in the book that I'm going to suggest is called Launching a Leadership Revolution by Chris Brady and Orrin Woodward. This is a world-class sales and marketing principle, and I want you to walk through this with me. He says if you sit down across from someone, and yes, we're going to bring this back to employee retention. He said if you sit down across from someone and you're trying to sell a product or sell a service, he said if you sit down and immediately try to make the sale, you're going to come across as a salesman who's trying to make a sale instead of a friend who's trying to help. So he said, you have to go in this order: make a friend, find a need that other person has, transfer an excited feeling, and then plug them into your system. And if you do these steps in order, you're going to gain trust as a salesman and come across as a friend. So let's talk about this when it comes to employee retainment. How does this work? What if we were to plug every one of our employees through this? Make a friend, find out about them. Find out the things they enjoy, what makes them tick, what's their family like, what's their hobbies. If we were to start there when it comes to hiring and bringing someone in, even if you were to do this when they've worked there for 6 months, hey, we're trying to start a new strategy. We really want to get to know the people that are working for us. Wouldn't you agree that someone who understands that their boss isn't just there to make a paycheck, but they're there to get to know them a little bit? Wouldn't that actually help them feel heard and appreciated a little more? Next is find a need in their lives. Why are they with you? What do they want to accomplish in their career? Remember, the people on your staff, if you are looking to stop the employee exodus, they are not tools at your disposal. They are human beings with passions and goals and things they really want to accomplish as well. So what do they want to accomplish in their career? Why did they choose to work with you? What skills do they want to develop and use? Notice what this really takes. It takes an outward mindset. It takes looking at other people. Next, now is your chance to transfer an excited feeling. This business partnership is a win-win. They're going to add their skill set into your team, and you're going to empower them with purpose and here's the deal. If you've already made a friend and find a need, you know about them. It's very easy to help them understand their place in your system. And lastly, plug them into your system. Now, a lot of people don't have a really good training system, so people don't really know what they're expected to do, and they don't know how to be rewarded. So that's one encouragement, is make sure you have that set in place, but then plug the person into it. You've made a friend, you found a need in their life, you've transferred an excited feeling. Now you're going to train them and empower them. And the reward system that is set up, they know how to increase. They know how to get promoted. Dale Carnegie says this. I'm going to close with a couple of these quotes. When dealing with people, let us remember we are not dealing with creatures of logic. We are dealing with creatures of emotion, creatures bristling with prejudices and motivated by pride and vanity, is how that finishes up. And do you know someone who'd like to change? Like, we all want to change other people and regulate and improve. Good. That's fine. I'm all in favor of it. But why not begin on yourself? From a purely selfish standpoint, there's a lot more that's a lot more profitable than trying to improve others. And he says, yes, and a lot less dangerous. Orrin Woodward, top leadership leader, says this: you're the project. You're the project to work on. So here's the final takeaway. Once again, if people feel heard, appreciated, empowered, rewarded, and fulfilled in their work, why would they ever leave? But if people feel ignored, underappreciated, invisible, and unfulfilled, why would they ever stay? How do we stop the employee exodus? These principles today that have been used for hundreds and hundreds and possibly probably thousands of years can help us in the 21st century stop the slide and keep the right people. So I really appreciate you tying into iSeek Solutions teaching today on how to win in 2021. Someone in iSeek is going to be reaching out to you soon. Please let us know any feedback and any questions you may have had about today's presentation. And please go check out the iSeek Solutions webpage that I mentioned earlier and their list of resources, because they can help you in your goals. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, hand it over to Marche so she can finish us off.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris, for that. That was amazing. As always, thank you so very much. I have so many nuggets here, so many notes. Again, if you have any additional questions for Chris or about iSeek Solutions or our services, please contact Chris or email Annie Allen at info@iSeekSolutions.com or visit our website at iSeekSolutions.com and click that Contact Us tab, and someone will be reaching back out to you. Again, you can reach out to Chris at any time. Expect to receive a survey feedback. We would love to hear your thoughts, like I said, and your feedback. Follow us on all social media and also on YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you can take a look at all of our webinars from here on the past and keep up with the future. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you all at the next event, and have a great week. Thank you again, Chris, and see you all soon.